Hello there, one and all, and everyone. I am Eric, inviting you into this episode of Slapendipity, Hobos of Happy Slappy Town. You may keep calling me Eric, as I am joined with my co-host, who you may call Devin, and only Devin. We're done with silly nicknames, except for Gibby for him. But there's no E-Rizzler, there's no Gibbity, there's no E-Money, there's no Devoni, Shaloni, Hanoni. It's all fat Fagoli. We're all done. It's out of the systems. We're never doing it again.
You can call me late to dinner, I guess, because last night me and Eric went on an adventure. Didn't we, Eric?
We did. We went to the mall.
We went to the mall, which is quick. It's so weird because to me that's such like an exotic and rare thing to do. Like maybe I used to go to the mall once a year around Christmas time, and we have now been there quite frequently. And so to me, I'm like, wow, this is like amazing. And then to our listeners, they're like, yeah, apparently you guys go to the mall every single week.
Yeah. I am in a similar boat, though, of I used to only go to the mall for, like, Christmas shopping or something. And now that there's, like, places to hang out at and has a card game shop and stuff and it's oh my gosh, there's actually a reason to go.
Yes, and when we went, I did not have dinner, and you had Popeye's chicken something?
I had little chicken nuggets.
Little
It
chicken
was
nuggets.
whatever. It was not great. It was also not super filling. It was also too expensive for what it was. They were also closing, so there wasn't a ton of like other things I could have gotten. So
And
I
that's
ate a
why you
bunch
can
of
call
food
me late to
afterwards.
dinner. No. Oh, it's fine. Remember, you have to have a healthy relationship with food.
Yeah. Well,
Anyway, that's why you can call me
it
late to
wasn't
dinner.
even,
So,
I mean, yes.
no, you can continue. You can continue.
Well, no, I mean, I didn't eat anything too crazy. It was just like, these eight little chicken nuggies aren't gonna do much for me. So then I ate, some more food, some chicken and a roast beef, a pizza.
Who eats a roast beef, a chicken, and a pizza at 3 in the morning?
Couldn't tell you.
Oh boy, 3 a.m. Anyway, SpongeBob quotes aside, we went to the mall for a couple reasons. You know, we've been going to this card store recently. We've gotten into Lorcana, so we went to like hang out and chill. Maybe they have the new set that just came out. Oh my god, that's so exciting. We went up and Eric rizzed up one of the people who works there, and she was like, "Oh my god, we should pay Lorcana sometimes." And when I say rizzed up, I don't mean like was flirting with her. I mean he just pulled out his straight up Eric charisma, and they were like chit chatting. So very, very, very cool. But the main reason that I was excited for this venture is that they buy cards there, Pokemon, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, etc. And I have a lot of those to sell. So I counted my bulk extra worthless cards and I brought them there and I sold them and I got a couple bucks. But I walked into that store with 26,000 Pokemon cards.
Wow.
I counted them out into gallon bags of 1,000 each, and we set them on the counter. And the guy's like, "Well, we had technically pay a different rate for energy cards compared to normal cards, so now we need to like go through all of these and count them and pull out all the energies." So then we all sat there, me, Eric, and the manager, and we counted 26,000 cards again to try to find all of
Yay.
the energies. And that took, I think we were there for 2.5 hours before like the sale was final.
Something like that.
Something like that. Also funny, while like we were in the middle of this, one of my employees from the theater like walked by the store with his girlfriend, and I was like, "What's up, man?" He's like, "Oh my god!" And he like walked in the store, and I said hi. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm selling 26,000 Pokemon cards." He was like, "Oh, okay. Tell me how that goes." So that'll be a fun story to tell at work when I go in probably tomorrow. What a crazy serendipitous moment.
It doesn't get much crazier than that, really.
Not at all. Do you want to say what your experiences with this experience were? Because you're not the one selling the cards. You're not there cleaning out your closet, getting some monies. You just went along with me.
I did, yeah. It was fine. I saw a bunch of trap inches in the Pokemon cards. Trapinch, a Pokemon. He evolves into Vibrava, who evolves into Flygon, who rules. Um, yeah, I just buy. My head is empty most of the time, so you know
So you're sitting
they
there
have.
mindlessly counting stuff.
I wasn't even counting. I was just looking for energy. There also had like a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament and a One Piece tournament happening at the same time as we were selling these cards. So that made for interesting like people watching,
Yeah,
you
there were
know.
like so many people there. Like while we were there counting, these guys had to come up to get like a rule check from the judge because he's the manager. And I don't know anything about Yu-Gi-Oh. I have literally no idea what's going on or what this guy is saying. Eric like only heard half of it, so I don't think that he could like go to his opinion, but I'm sitting there like these people are speaking a different language.
It's fine. Yu-Gi-Oh isn't the most complicated card game, probably.
Probably. From the outside it appears to be
Oh
significantly
no,
more
it super is.
complicated
It, no,
than Magic and all those games.
yeah. If you could not hear the sarcasm, that was laced with
Okay.
sarcasm.
I did not pick up on the sarcasm.
No, Yu-Gi-Oh is convoluted and sometimes.
All right, so what else did you do this week?
Well, um, okay, here's a little fun fact. I've been going to the weekly tournaments, right? I was like, oh, I don't want to make this the same thing if no one's interested. And so we go count cards, and part of my riz, as you described it, was the woman being like, "Hey, you weren't at the tournament this week. What's up with that, bub?" And I was like, my friend was sick, and I already agreed to hang out with him, so then we hanged out online." And she was like, "Oh, well, that's lame. You should come to tournaments." I was like, "I guess."
Yeah,
So
so
if
again,
I
these people are like, they enjoy having e-money around. I mean, Eric around.
Devin, I had a whole bit for next episode. Now it's ruined.
I'm so sorry.
Now the people don't get to hear it. Yes. So I that's a little interesting. Of I kind of imagine her like if I miss another tournament, just like coming out to my house with like a pipe in her hand, being like, "You weren't at the Lorcana tournament."
I'm here for your
Um,
kneecaps.
Not my kneecaps. No one would threaten violence. That's absurd. Let's see. In terms of other things, I this is such a small thing, but it was so delicious. I baked cupcakes.
Hmm.
And I think I've talked about this on here before about how people don't know how to make cupcakes
You have
because
not
of
talked about
the
that before.
okay, people don't
What do you
know. I mean,
mean?
people get the ratio of icing to cake wrong all of
I
the time.
agree. They never put on enough icing. I agree.
They never put on a correct amount of icing, which is because they always put too much on. If I
No,
have a
we've had
cup
many disagreements
cake,
about this.
I have a cup cake, not a cup icing. If I just want to eat icing, I will buy a cup of icing container from the store, take a spoon, and shove it in my mouth. If I want a cup cake with a relative amount of icing, I will bake the cupcakes, which I did. that came out pretty moist as well. And then take a knife, spread the icing on the cupcake. You get like an inch, maybe an inch and a half, maybe 2 inches if you're just kind of going crazy with it and like you're bad at it because you want to cover all of the cupcake top. Then that is all you need. You don't need your cupcake to be wearing a hat made out of icing. It's absurd. It's absurd. I want to taste the cake and then get like the notes of the icing as it like as they chew together in my mouth and I swallow and it hits my stomach and it all blends as one down there. Um,
Listen, I feel like I did a good job sitting here in silent rage as you stated this objectively incorrect opinion. Okay, icing, there is no such thing as bad icing. The only bad icing is if you like make it cream cheese based,
whoa.
and then you do it wrong, right? Like you can make that wrong. I'm not saying it's all bad, but you can
I
do it wrong. There is
I never
nothing
said it's bad.
there is nothing bad about icing. Whereas you can't mess it up. Whereas cupcakes, you can. If you go to ShopRite or Walmart and you buy a cheap bad cupcake, it's gonna taste like sawdust, right? Like there are bad cupcakes, but there is no such thing as bad icing. If you give me the most fanciest cupcake in the world, I might say, you know what, I want to taste the cupcake more than I want to take the icing. But 99% of the time, cupcakes are a vehicle for eating the icing because it is not acceptable to buy a tub of icing, put a spoon in it, and then just eat some from the can. You can only have icing when it's on cake. Cake is the vehicle to eat the icing. The point of eating it is to eat the icing. Mound that icing all over it. I want 20% cake, 80% icing. The point of eating the cupcake is to eat the icing. Period.
I've never heard someone be more wrong in my life. The point.
The point of eating cheese and crackers is the cheese. The cracker is a vehicle for the cheese. The
No!
point of
It's about
spaghetti
the
the
balance!
point of spaghetti is you're eating
Don't you.
the tomato sauce. The spaghetti is a vehicle to eat the
No!
sauce.
No!
Yes.
Okay, no. This, you know what this is telling me? You're weak. If you have never. Okay, listen. Oh, you can't buy a tub of icing and get a spoon and eat it? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You're just weak. You've never taken a whipped cream, spray can and just sprayed it into your mouth after you use it to top your hot chocolate or whatever. You've never,
No.
well, a bunch of people around the world would like to have a word with you. You've never taken a cart of orange juice or tea or whatever other thing, but like a big jug of it, and then just take a swig from it instead of pouring it into a glass.
Yes, I have swigged from orange juice before. That's not the same thing.
It's the same thing.
Okay, you
It's
know how
about using the carton, the original packaging as your dish to get the thing.
you know how
Now,
only
no,
psychopaths will
no, no.
you know how only psychopaths will bite into an Oreo cookie because normal human beings who aren't lizards twist it apart and then eat the cream, and then if they want to might eat the cookie because the cookie's the bad part and the cream's the good part.
No, it's about balance. They're both good.
No, it's about the cream. You're wrong.
No. Listen, cake and cupcakes are also just more than the vehicle for icing. Icing is, I mean, it's fine.
Icing is the icing on
But
top.
icing is the icing on top. A cake exists for its own purpose. If I had the option between a pie and a cake, I will take cake 10 out of 10 times every time because it's infinitely better than a pie.
I don't.
The
I've had some pies that are much better than some cakes. There are some very cheap cakes out there. Also, one of the things that elevates cakes above pies is the icing.
one of the other things you said was that you can have a bad cake, but you can't have bad icing, except for the niche case. Sounds like a you problem. Just get good cake. Also, a bad cake shouldn't be the reason you then decide to have good icing or to like focus on the icing. If I'm eating a pizza and I'm like, wow, the cheese and the sauce is really good, but the crust sucks. I guess I'm never gonna focus on the crust ever again for pizza. That'd be
Eric,
insane.
Eric, Eric, we live in New Jersey. We have the best and arguably only good pizza crust in the world. That is like if we ate gourmet cake for every meal, in which case I would agree with you that icing and cake are both good and a balance of them is important. But if we lived somewhere else where pizza crust sucks and you're really only eating it because you like the oil and maybe the cheese, then I think most people would say, oh, pizza dough is no good. Then that's why some losers out there don't eat their crusts. So it's a bad comparison.
No, the point is if you overcook your cake and then it's bad, and you overcook your crust and that's bad, that's about your cooking process being bad. That has nothing to reflect on the cake and the crust.
But it's crunchy pizza crust can be good.
Well, I mean, sure, I'm saying overcooked though for both, right? Like, if the cake is super dry and kind of burnt.
Listen, I'm just saying, if you're eating popcorn, you're
Also,
you're
no,
not
you
eating it
said
for the popcorn,
spaghetti
you're
is
eating
a
it for the
vehicle
salt and
for
the
the
butter.
sauce? That's insane!
Yes.
Spaghetti's the best pasta. It's delicious.
Would you eat just naked wet spaghetti noodles? No cheese, no sauce, no
I've eaten
nothing?
dry spaghetti.
What is wrong with you?
Because it's delicious. You've never put a raw spaghetti in your mouth and go, what's
I
up, Doc?
have. And it tastes like a wet noodle, which is not a good taste.
What? No, okay, first of all, a cooked and uncooked spaghetti noodle tastes different. So let's just get that
Yeah,
there.
I have put uncooked spaghetti, like angel hair pasta spaghetti, in my mouth before, and that is worse than if you're eating like a cooked
It's.
ravioli, not ravioli, a cooked like rigatoni.
Are you trying to diss rigatoni?
No, I'm saying a cooked rigatoni is better than a raw spaghetti. Spaghetti, like a raw, is just weird.
I mean, yeah, I guess I won't. Listen, I'm not out here gonna say like uncooked spaghetti is the way to live for everyone. However, spaghetti is more than a vehicle for sauce.
I disagree. Listen,
It's,
there's many types of spaghetti. There's like, when I'm eating spaghetti, and
but you
I'm
can.
like,
Here's the thing.
I'm gonna use zucchini noodles, or instead of pasta, I'm gonna have gnocchi or nochi. Instead of mac and cheese, I'm gonna put cheese on rice. Instead of this that instead of a pizza crust, I'm gonna have a cauliflower crust. Like the what you're eating is the in spaghetti's case is the spicy sauce and the cheese. In pizza case is the spicy sauce and the cheese because that's all Italians eat. And the crust, the bread, the carb is a vehicle for the rest of the good tasting food.
No, this is weak. This is weak. I expected better of you.
Eric, you just said I take a spoon and dip it into a cupful of icing, and you're the weak one. Like what?
Yeah, I don't eat a tub of icing from the thing. That's weird. I would never
You
do
said
that.
you
I
said you
don't
would
want them.
you said you
I've
would put a
never
spoon
done
in a
that
thing
in
of
my life.
icing. Oh,
No,
you
no,
said you would.
I'm saying a person can do that if they just want to eat raw icing like a freak.
But
Love
no
you
one wants to eat raw
guys.
icing. I don't want to eat, you know, I don't want to use pasta, sauce as tomato soup. Like you need the spaghetti, but ultimately you're eating it for the sauce. You're eating
Because
popcorn for the salt and the butter.
at this point, you're saying all pasta is interchangeable and none of them matter because, well, they're
Um,
all just bread.
I think that some of them serve the function of being pasta better, right? Like there's certain pasta shapes I prefer. But I've completely phased pasta out of my life for zucchini noodles because the point is the taste of the cheese and the sauce, not the taste of the noodle. Are you in silent disbelief?
I just don't know how to help someone when they're so wrong and they don't even see how wrong they are, right? It's not even like you
Eric,
don't want to help yourself, it's that you don't know where you've misstepped.
Eric, what's your opinion on pineapple pizza?
I've never actually eaten it, so I can't fairly assess slash criticize, but I'd say its reputation precedes it.
So, or would you? It's a good thing.
I, I, I mean, it looks gross, but I haven't
Okay,
eaten it, so it's not
I
a
thought you
fair
were gonna.
shake.
I thought we all tried it once together, but I guess I was wrong. I thought you were gonna say that you do like it, and then I was gonna say I rest my case.
No,
Okay, okay. Well, still, you don't like cake with icing because icing's the best part. So you're still wrong.
no, look, it's for both. That's why you put the icing on the cake. I could 100% eat cake without icing on it, and that'd be its own
Yeah,
fun little treat.
like pound cake typically doesn't have icing on it, right? And like
Sure.
that's good and like that's nice. But what makes pound cake better is when you do put icing on it, like strawberry
No,
and strawberry frosting, lemon frosting. Oh my god, it's so good.
it doesn't. I mean, well, A, it doesn't need it, but that's a separate conversation because you're saying it'll enhance the flavor. But if you're still
Use your words.
enhancing the flavor is one thing. If you have a pound cake and it's right, like I don't know what, they're usually pretty thick. They got some height to them, right? They're kind of like a little log of cake, and then you take icing and you make you have so much icing that you put the a weight of icing equal to the weight of the cake on top of the cake, you've just failed. Like you might as well just be ingesting pure sugar because that's all you want.
Yeah, and there's nothing culinarily wrong with that. Like earlier, right? You're like, we're only going to call me Devin or Gibby. We're not going to call me Gaboli. And I said, yeah, cannoli. If you're eating a cannoli, you're eating it for the frosting inside.
Oh my
The
gosh, this
the
guy.
crunch and like the powdered sugar or the whatever on the cannoli is like part of the experience, but you're eating it for the cream. Same thing with like a cream or jelly filled donut. Oh my god. Silent agony again.
We're just gonna have to move past this. I don't foresee this moving
once
forward in any capacity.
Once again, I apologize to anyone listening who's hungry. Um,
You should just never listen to this. You're like, did a new episode drop? Cool. Let me eat a meal first.
I watch so many YouTube videos and listen to so many podcasts when I'm eating. But yeah, I guess like if I'm like driving home from work and I want dinner and people are just like, "Let me tell you about pizza and cannoli," that might be a struggle.
Cake.
Anyway, on
Mm.
the and
No,
cake on
wait.
the
I have
topic.
one last. I have one last thing.
You interrupted my segue, Eric. Continue.
I. It's important. Damn it. Similar to the cake icing ratio. I'm gonna use the example of sandwiches, right? You want enough peanut butter or whatever. I use peanut butter. Peanut butter's my favorite. You want enough peanut butter so that it coats your slice of bread evenly and doesn't have much more extra than is needed to fill the slice of bread.
Eric, you know that I put a spoon in a jar of peanut butter and I eat peanut butter, chunky peanut butter, with no bread because it is very filling and it is very nice and chewy, and white bread is like both gross and also very, very bad for you. I will put a spoonful of peanut butter with nothing else in my mouth because the bread is only a vehicle for the peanut butter.
Yeah, I'm just saying for your like icing ratio for your
Mm-hmm.
cupcake, it's the same thing
Mm-hmm.
as your peanut butter for like a peanut butter sandwich or something. You want to
Yes. Yeah.
coat it with a
No.
thin layer so that it
No.
covers just the top slash the bread slice.
No.
Maybe a little extra if you're just really feeling it.
The
And that's all
bread
you
is
need.
the vehicle for the peanut butter. You don't even need the bread at all.
Oh, that's interesting. Why aren't you doing that with icing then?
Like you could, but that's like psychotic because like it's icing. It's not
Uh-huh,
peanut butter.
uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. I'm hearing a lot of qualifiers and a lot of baloney.
Listen, if like health didn't exist, if I could just eat whatever I wanted, I probably would just eat icing straight out of the tin.
I mean, you still could. You could get a teaspoon and, go
Well,
about. You
I'm
don't have to eat half the jar in one go.
it probably would be very, very sweet. So like I probably wouldn't enjoy it. But the point is that
Oh,
the
oh, interesting. Interesting. As if the
that's be
cake serves more than a purpose as a vehicle.
it no, it's a vehicle.
Go back to your segue. I hate it here.
My segue is on the
Get in the
topic.
comments. Get in the comments. Tell me I'm right. Join my cause.
It's mildly upsetting that every comment that someone's left about one of our debates is agreeing with you. I don't like that.
Yeah, because there's more people like me out there. We're gonna rise up. We're gonna write so many cookbooks and get the truth out. We're gonna
Frosting
fix the
haters rise up.
problems. It's not about hating Frost. I don't hate frosting. Frosting is delicious. I ate one of my cupcakes and I just focused on the frosting for half a second and it was so good. And I didn't need a literal head's worth of icing to do that.
It's okay to be wrong. Anyway,
I didn't know you
on
had a
the
mirror in
topic
your office so you could tell
on the
yourself that.
top on the topic of pizza.
Yes, on the
On the
topic of
topic of pizza.
pizza.
So we were at the mall yesterday and we're walking through the food court, and this little kid is like, there's like a family, right, sitting at one of the tables eating, and we're walking by, and this little kid just full arm extended, right, elbow all the way out, just points at me. And I'm like, oh, he's probably pointing at something beyond me. I'm not gonna pay attention, like, oh, whatever. But as we keep walking forward, his finger follows me as we're walking, and he starts like talking. Now I can't like hear him. I can't make him out. He sounds just like a little like kid, like babbling, just making noises. But as I keep going, he like his finger just follows us as we're walking, and it's like my brain has to catch up with what's going on. And we get like 3 steps past where the family is, and it finally all clicks in my head that I'm wearing a Five Nights at Freddy's shirt. And so this kid is pointing at Freddy's on my shirt. That's why it has to do with pizza. And the sound he was making was the Toreador March. He was going her 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 her. And that's the sound that this little kid was making, pointing at my Freddy shirt as I walked by. And I'm like, oh my god, that was the cutest thing ever. That makes this entire trip to the mall worth it.
Yeah, as someone who was there with you when it happened, it was kind of surreal because this kid was pointing at you, going, her, and you had the most stone cold straight face, and I was like, wow, Devin's really upset about something. I don't know. And this kid isn't making it any better. And then we walk past the kid and you just like drop a little, and I'm like, oh, okay. Good.
It's like I like started like squeeing in excitement, like when you see a cute dog. I'm like, that was so fun. That was so cute. But yeah, like when we were walking by him, I'm like, oh, this kid is like pointing in my direction. I'm not gonna like look over at him because he's probably not pointing at me. And then again, when I realized what was happening, I'm like, that's so fun. That's so cool.
Mm-mm.
Do you have any other
Caesar.
I don't know,
Did
any
I
stories, anything that you did last week to further your aspirations in life?
um no, not 100%. I Well, here's what happened. Let me give you a little rundown. If we have an
Okay.
older audience in the crowd, hopefully they'll feel seen. Uh, as people may or may not know, I go bouldering from time to time, and I have hurt myself going bouldering because I tried a route that I probably shouldn't have, and it just messed up my shoulder. And I was like, wow, well, I'll be fine. And like 2 days later, I went back and did it again, and it was fine at the time. And then I made it worse, and it was agitated. And now it's been like 2 weeks or something, maybe three, and my shoulder still hurts. And I'm like, oh no, I'm an old man. I'm not recovering from injuries like I used to. I don't know if I pulled a muscle. I haven't seen any doctors yet, because who's got time for that? And it's still, even to now, messed up a bit. And it's not like so painful, right? I've been living it with like this for weeks at this point. So, but it has made me go, oh, I need to like really be on top of what I do and try with the rest of my life, because it's this is not a good demo reel of what could happen.
We're not invincible anymore.
No, it's so hilarious. As a tiny child, like the one that pointed out to us in the mall, right? Like 10 and under, let's say, right? You're made of rubber, and it's incredible. And then you like hit 11 to 15, and you're like, oh, I am not rubber, I can be damaged. And then you get from 16 to like 20, and you're like, oh, I'm invincible, this is amazing. And then after like 25, maybe 24, for the average person, I'd say, like, it's like, oh no, I can do a simple, quote unquote, simple thing, and like my life could be messed up for quite a while, at least.
Yeah,
So,
I've talked about this on my, I don't know if I talked about it on the podcast. I've talked about it on my channel where I hurt my back lifting a couch and was in like a back brace and had to do physical therapy. And even now, like it can hurt me sometimes. I got sponsored by this like gaming chair company, and the chair they gave me is literally like the only one I can sit in and feel totally comfortable. So that's probably the only product I will ever endorse that I'm like, guys, this product actually changed and saved my life. Um, but yeah, it's like you get hurt and then you're just in pain forever, and I hate it.
it's baloney. Absolute baloney.
Absolute clown world.
At least Clown World, I would laugh and scream.
Hmm. So speaking of what people did this weekend, clowns.
I'm like,
I want to
ah,
talk. I want to talk about. Because like on paper, the conceit of this podcast was us talking about being like creative people, right? Like that's what
It
we're here
wasn't
to talk
talking
about.
about food.
It wasn't.
Are you
It's
sure?
kind of turned into that. But I really wanted. I have multiple channels, right? One of them is only like soft launched with a couple old videos on it. But I have two main channels that I'm maintaining, right? And I want to get a video out on each of them at least once a week, and I have not managed to do that. So
Hmm.
on my horror themed channel, I wanted to get a quick video out that would take me like 1 or 2 days to make, and then it could be out that week. And so I polled my audience. I'm like, what topic do you want me to make a video on? And they're like, we want you to make a video on the role of Mrs. Afton from Five Nights at Freddy's in the narrative. I'm like, okay, that'll probably be done in like a day or two. Let me tell you, Eric, it's been like 3 weeks. I haven't finished editing it yet, but the raw audio is about an hour and a half long. I've been struggling. I put out like a segment of the video on my channel because
Hmm.
I'm like, okay, well this segment is going to be too long to fit into my small video, so I'm going to make it its own video. And now looking at how big the project has gotten, I'm like, oh, that could have just been one 9 minute segment of this hour and a half long video. It didn't need to be its own thing. So I started the poll asking people what video I want to make by saying like, I keep starting projects and they balloon out and get too long. I want to make a simple video topic, and it has now ballooned out and gotten too long. And I just don't know. I just don't know what to do. Everything I do just ends up taking like becoming a massive project and bigger than it's supposed to. And I'm having problems like just making short content, like making a simple video. And I don't know how to get back in the groove of me being like, hey, I'm going to talk about a talking dog for 10 minutes, as opposed to, here's the definitive 2 hour long documentary on these hamsters in this underwater city.
Well, you know what it sounds like to me.
What's it sound like to you?
Uh, I mean, I'm putting on my fake doctor hat and pulling everything out of my butt. You've watched so much content that it is so long, you've forgotten how short form videos even exist because you just don't watch them. You messaged me the other day going, "Oh my gosh, a new Jenny Nicholson video. It's amazing." And it's 4 hours long. I have not watched it yet. I'm sure it is amazing. But if all you watch is at videos of 4 hours long length, as you do with the I forget his name, the guy that made like the Drake and Josh and iCarly videos. Yeah.
Yeah, Quentin reviews.
Yes. You've forgotten. It's not in your database anymore.
But it's not like I'm like, oh, I'm going to expand this topic from 10 minutes to an hour. It's just that every time I try to make a video, the amount of stuff to cover is just longer than I expected. And I'm sitting here waving my fist in the air like, I just want to make a simple, short video.
Well, keep it simple then.
Okay, so like you like horror stuff. So if I was to make a video on my
Yeah.
horror theme channel, what should I make a
Yeah.
video of that's 10 minutes long?
Well, you can't steal anything I might use, so
Hmm,
there's
hmm, hmm.
that. Um, I would say find a ghost story and do that.
Like what? Just
Ghost
summarize
stories,
someone else's goat story?
yep, basically. Yeah.
Okay, so like you said that, the first thing I think of is like, okay, I have a ghost story. So like I could tell my ghost story on the channel. But I'm like, okay, how do I tell this story? And immediately I'm thinking like, okay, I have to animate it. I have to,
No.
I have to write the story like a narrative. But like technically I could just point the camera at myself and tell the story and let my facial expressions like be the
Gary.
thing that people focus on. Like technically I could do that and just tell the story from memory as opposed to
Yeah.
writing it out like a narrative and reading it like a script.
Yeah.
Is that what I should do? I
Yeah.
should tell my ghost story. Okay. That means that podcast listeners who don't watch my channel will have to tune in to Gibby's Horror Homestead if they want to hear my ghost story.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh, just like cross promotion or something.
That's
Um,
crazy.
where should they go? So you just said that you had ideas for horror videos. Where should they go to watch your horror videos, Eric?
They should go absolutely in the waiting queue for it. It's
Because it doesn't
still
exist yet.
cooking. It,
Mm-hmm.
it's still cooking.
How long's
All
it
right,
been
I don't
cooking,
need
Eric?
this sass. I
How
don't need
long?
this
6 years?
sass. Get off my
Cooking for
face. Whoa,
cooking
whoa,
for
whoa. It
cooking for
has
six
not been.
years?
Listen, the
Like the pizza
idea of.
crust? Like the burnt pizza crust? Like the cake that is too dry? It's been cooking for too long. You need to take it out, put some icing on there.
Icing is a band-aid for bad cake.
It is. Icing is a band-aid for bad cake. Boom. There's the episode title.
Yeah, but hey, just have good cake. Listen. The idea of content creation on YouTube is maybe 6 years. This idea is not. Don't
Okay.
mislead the people now.
Okay, but like my channel, my YouTube identity has changed so much since I actually started. I technically started in 2014. So it's been no, 2015. So it's been, 9 years since I really
2016.
started YouTube. No, 2015. The April of 2015 is when I made my first video. That is long gone. So
I
like the
was, I was,
concept of 2016, because every year is 2016. Yes.
yes.
Um, and it's just changed. And I don't mean like, oh, I used to cover Star Wars and now I cover Christian. I just mean like I used to want to do these videos like documenting and going over like the themes of a video game, right? And
Mm,
exploring it in an academic sense. And like I still plan to make videos like that within the Absurd series, but that's not going to be my channel anymore, right? So that iteration of my channel never got past the scripting phase. So you can sit there and be like, oh, well, like I used to do this, but now I want to do this and I want to do that. It's like your first two concepts might not take off. You might have to like, you got to try. You got to start today. Start doing stuff. It will fail. And then on your third attempt, you'll like finally make it and be happy with what you're doing. Saying that, I literally just realized that my 8-hour Five Nights at Freddy's video is exploring the themes of video games, not in an academic sense, but like in general. I did not put that together until right now. Wow. But yeah, you just gotta start, man. And this is my advice for anyone who wants to do YouTube: is like just start, and your stuff's gonna be bad at first, and no one's gonna watch it, so it doesn't matter.
with a Gen Z mindset.
But that is not a Gen Z
Life
mindset.
is
That is what everyone says.
I mean, sure. I just in the sense that like, haha, life is meaningless. Therefore, do anything
Life
in
isn't
a loving
meaningless.
way.
I
Well, sure.
would
I mean,
strongly disagree.
it's the meme, right? You have like a millennial and a Gen Z, and you talk to the millennial, and they're like, "Life is meaningless." Oh gosh. And then you talk to a Gen Z, and they're like, "Life is meaningless." Oh gosh. Because it's about the perspective of
And they're both
indifferent
cringe because
cosmos.
nihilism is cringe.
I mean, fair enough, I guess.
So what I'm hearing is that you're going to start your channel.
I've never said I wouldn't, but you know
Okay.
what I am hearing? The bells and
What?
whistles of the Grand Chase.
LeGrand Chase?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh man, after this we're going to have to go to mailbag, aren't we?
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Hit it. Hello, everyone. Welcome back from the break. I hope you enjoyed LeGrand Chase. We're going to do a mailbag segment right now. I know we've been teasing those for a while. I know we've read some one-off comments, but this is the first of the official, what I'm going to call, letters. This guy wrote down a very long letter. The mailman came, tied it to a rock, threw it down under the bridge. We picked it up. I dried it off, and now we're going to be reading this whole letter with multiple questions for both of us. and we're going to be answering the first true message to Slapendipity Hobos of Happy Slappy Town, the podcast. Are you ready, Eric?
No shade to those other two. We still love those. Yeah, I'm ready.
Absolutely. All right, so this comes from Jam, and he wanted to ask us each questions. He thinks that he says, I really enjoy the podcast. It's hilarious and insightful to hear both of your perspectives on things, even if they're as silly and minute as shoes or the weather. So thank you, Jam. That's some very nice comments. I'm actually gonna start. He lists them as questions for me and then questions for you. I'm
Okay.
gonna go back and forth. We're gonna make this a sandwich, okay, like a sandwich, which is only a vehicle for peanut butter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so question number
Whoa,
one.
whoa.
Uh huh.
I mean, it's more than for peanut butter. It's got like other meat, and a sandwich could be with anything.
Okay, but you shouldn't put meat on your sandwich because you shouldn't eat meat. Anyway, let's go. He says, Eric,
So,
you were talking
yes,
about one of Eric, you were talking about one of your mother's dogs, which charged straight at you after it got out. Do you have any other pet stories?
I have so many pet stories. What do you want to hear, my good friend? Do you want
Give me
cats
some
or dogs? You
options.
want. Okay, so we got birds, we got rabbits, we got dogs, we got cats, we got fish, we got guinea pigs, we got hamsters.
I didn't know that you had guinea pigs,
I
hamsters,
think
birds,
that's about it.
and rabbits. I didn't know any of that.
Yeah, some of
All
them
right,
were from a time in the past.
tell me tell me any of those stories, a guinea pig or a rabbit story.
Okay, well, I so the guinea pigs and rabbits and the hamsters. Some of these are when I was like a child, and some of them was when I was a baby. And there's only the two mild stories, if that. I so I'll tell the more interesting ones. I had a hamster as a child. I believe he was black with a little spot of white, and I was, as may be somewhat evident, big into Yu-Gi-Oh!
Mm-hmm.
So naturally, I get this pet hamster, and I'm like, this is glorious. He shall be named Slifer, the Sky Hamster. Uh, and I had him for about a year or so, maybe two. Hamsters, turns out, don't live a long time. And we had a good time. I didn't know I didn't know hamsters were nocturnal. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so it we set him up in my room, and I was like, "Yay, my buddy!" And then I went to bed, and then he was in his like playhouse cage home thing, and he would just like run on the wheel. He would sprint through the little tunnels throughout it, and I would wake up constantly in the middle of the night and be like, Slifer, why? Why do you do this? So we had to move him out into the garage, and because I just could not sleep with him. But so we also would like get a little hamster ball. You put the hamster in the ball, you spin it. It's a big plastic thing with air slits, and um, we would like bring him into the house in that. And he could exist outside of it, of course, but like to for play, and he would like charge around in it, and then like our dog at that time would play with him and like gently like slap him around a little, and like he'd charge back, and you know cute stuff like that. And then he died.
Oh.
um which he had a good run. um Gosh, I don't know what we did. I don't handle haven't handled animal deaths amazingly. Gosh, they've all been kind of wild.
Yeah, no good.
So that's the Slifer stories. There is a picture of me holding him in my arms, like raised onto my shoulders as a child. It's cute. Not because of me, because of him.
I also had a hamster when I was young. And
Mm.
they do only live like 2 years, right? That's a full hamster life.
Yeah.
He was fully brown, so what do you think I named him?
Poop.
That's right, Chewbacca. So
Oh.
so
Chewing.
yes, hamsters are nocturnal, and so mine would chew on the bars of the cage or run in his little hamster wheel all night. And sometimes if the wheel just got really, really squeaky and I couldn't sleep, I would just like open the cage and knock the wheel over and be like, "No wheel for you for the rest of the night. You can like do whatever." And then like the next day,
Oh
I would like
no.
I would like fix the wheel so it wasn't as squeaky and then it'd be fine. But part of the cage was, I'm gonna say, like this plastic hamster ball that's like meant for running, and he decided
Hmm.
that that was gonna be his bed. So he slept in the
Okay.
plastic built-in hamster wheel, and then we had to get him like a metal, hamster wheel, like a classic one that was super duper squeaky. I took him out on the ball a couple times, but one time he was in there and he peed, and then the pee just got all over the inside of the ball, and I'm like, well,
Uh,
I can see this being a problem, and so I don't know if I want to like have him have to do that again. But yeah, and then he died, and we gave him a full funeral, buried him in the backyard. My dad said a prayer over him. Um,
as you do.
and that's what happened to my hamster.
That's tragic. That's what happens.
Do you
Um.
have any stories about the bunny or the birds?
So the bunny and the birds are when I was a baby. The birds is as simple. The only story I know about them is that one day we had birds. We had a bird cage, and my mom went to clean out the bird cage. So she put the birds in like a like a back porch with like a but that was like had like mesh walls, not mesh. Gosh, what's the imagine like wooden poles and then like a mesh around the wooden poles to like make it with secure environment. I'm not good at this. I forget what it was exactly, but kind of like a back porch esque setup. That was like a secure building, and so she was cleaning out the bird cage, and she just had the birds just like freely in the back porch, and then she like opened the door because she needed to get something to like clean the bird cage or put them back in. I forget what. And the birds were just like bet and flew out the door, and that's it. And they left.
Oh my lord.
They were, as far as I'm aware, they were like you know bought, and like they were designated to be like pet birds. We didn't like wildly capture an injured bird and it like left. They saw their opportunity and they were like, cool, it's been fun, but gotta skedaddle. And so that was that. I have a little funny cat story from when I was not a baby. At a certain point in my life, we as a family decided, hey, we live uh, in very hot climates. We should get a pool. And we went, heck yes, let's get a pool. At the time, we had a cat, and he was an indoor outdoor cat. And so we decide on a pool. We get the like the hire people to make an outdoor above ground pool. So they have to like level the land. They gotta put down the concrete, put down the foundation, all that. So as they have like the concrete down and it's like dried and whatever, and I think one other layer of whatever they needed to do. It was kind of like uh, imagine the texture of like I don't know wood chips or kitty litter, something like that, as the final layer they put down. And so my cat, who was an outdoor cat and indoor cat, saw this and was like, this is incredible. And he just took a big poop right on where the pool would be built, in like the center of this pool. And as far as I know, the workers came back and just proceeded to build. So, presumably that pool still exists. I have moved since then. I don't know what happened to it. However, as long as the workers did not move the poop, which I don't believe they would have needed to, there is a pool somewhere, and there is going to be fossilized poop under that pool.
Oh my god, fossilized cat poop.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah. Yeah, he was crazy. He was a good cat. Good cat.
Your cat's gonna be eternal
Um,
now.
he's already he's dead.
Yes.
He has to be. That was
But he has to be. Did you, like,
well,
leave him behind, or did he escape or something?
no, well, so he made the move with us, and he had trouble adjusting, and he was old at that point already. And then he was an indoor outdoor cat, and the last time I can remember him, right, he was kind of sick, nothing too crazy. He was just kind of like throwing up a little bit. He had like, nothing too bad, but he was a little sick, and he was stressed out because of the move. And the last memory I have of him is he was in my room and then was going to leave my room. And I don't remember if I was kicking him out or if he decided to leave on his own. Regardless, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to close my door because whatever reason. And I thought that he had made it out, so I closed the door and I got his tail in between the door, and
Hmm.
he like screeched because obviously, and I was like, I'm sorry. I like open the door and I like lurk out to him, and he just sprints away. And then, as far as I recall it, what someone else in my family opened the door to the outside, and he was like, bet. Went outside, which isn't uncommon. He was an indoor outdoor cat, and he never came back.
Oh. I think it was
Um,
definitely just his time.
yeah, so he, so there's many theories about what happened, right? Either he did the cat thing of like, I know I'm dying, I will run far away, so I do not burden the family with my death, and like just went into the woods or whatever. Um, Off chance someone else found him and took him in, and maybe he's still alive somehow, but he'd be the longest living cat as far as I know. My father likes to joke that he got picked up by like a falcon or something, or a fox,
Oh my god.
uh, which isn't impossible, but I don't like. Um, so that's that cat story. I could do this all day.
All right,
So
well,
I'll cut it off there, and if people keep want to hearing pet stories,
we're not gonna
send
promise.
some
We're not
peanut
gonna
butter.
promise any stories in the future, but I will think, I will hope that these might come up at further points.
Yeah.
All
All
right,
right. Let's
so
get back to the letter.
one of the questions for me is, he says, Devin, you mentioned a few famous people that you were in class with while growing up. If this is the case, why is Happy Slappy Town not really know outside of the residents, right? Why does the rest of the world not know about Happy Slappy Town? Part of that is due to the enchantment that's placed on the outskirts of the town that allows it to be magical, right? Like, we have trolls, we have hags, we have. I've never seen like a real wizard, but like I think they're probably just like hiding their magical powers from us. but we do have a lot of fantasy creatures, and like we ourselves have to live under a bridge because it's the
We do have
any-when
psychics.
bridge. We definitely have psychics. We live under the any-when bridge, which allows us to be, any time we want, and it also allows us to partially travel. Like it also allows us to travel through space, right? Like if you're on one side of the bridge and you cross over to the other, you've traveled in space and now you're on the other side of the river, right? So like it does that too, but no more magical than a normal bridge. But it is the any-when bridge, and so it allows us to tell these stories from our long distant past, like all the way back in 2016. And I think that the reason people don't really know Happy Slappy Town is because of this enchantment that prevents news and people from it from really spreading into the rest of the world. The reason that we are able to make this podcast is because we live in the any-when bridge. And that allows us to like contact you guys, right? Like your letters, your emails can be sent to our post office, but we can't directly get them, And so I hope that answers your question.
If I could just add a small addendum.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the reverse Atlantis, right? Everyone knows about Atlantis, but no one's been there. People have been to Happy Slappyville, but no one knows it exists.
Yeah, like if you drove through Happy Slappy Town, or like you stopped at one of our bars, or like you went to our fine eatery establishments, like you wouldn't even know that you were in a magical town. People have been here, but they don't know about it.
It's crazy.
All right, so now it's your turn, Eric.
Okay.
One of the questions is, Eric, what do
Yes.
you do for your work? Can you show us listeners an example of your voice acting work?
First of all, you lovely people are my work, as well as Devin. Uh, Second of all, how do you know about my voice acting work?
Because I
I'm
mentioned
not a
it.
professional.
No, you're
When
not. You're
did
not
you
a professional.
mention it?
You're not a professional. You're not like, oh my god, I was on this episode of this. But like, I when I mentioned the conceit of the podcast, I'm like, I've been a YouTuber for 6 years, and Eric is an aspiring voice actor and like wants to get into streaming and that kind of stuff. So like,
Oh
that's
my gosh.
your
That was
your
13
aspirations in the
episodes ago.
creative space. Well, I've also mentioned it in
Oh,
text posts and in my videos, my FNAF videos advertising the podcast.
stuff I have not seen.
If you don't want to watch my
Uh,
FNAF videos, that is on you.
well, no, but like the text posts and the so on and so on.
Hmm.
Listen, I'm not opposed to watching the FNAF video, but it's 9 hours long. It's so long.
I have shorter videos.
I don't know, but that's the one.
That is
Um,
the one.
Gosh, well, I'm always a little awkward when I'm put on the spot because I'm still an aspirer. But I would say my most consistent is Elmo. So,
Like doing an Elmo voice.
yeah.
Are you gonna
I mean,
perform your Elmo voice for us?
sure. I can, do higher pitch, lower pitch, but then it's just voices. But if you want like an impression. You want Elmo then? Hi, everybody. Oh no, I need water.
That the magical the magical chaos being called Discord that is allowing us to speak right now decided that
Yeah.
it wanted to cut out most of that because it's like, oh, there's a high pitch
Oh
whining, there's a high pitch
no.
whining in the background. Let me just use my programming to cut that out. In the recording, you guys are gonna be able to hear it, but all I heard was some loud
But Devin couldn't
screeching.
hear it.
Yeah, I couldn't
Oh
hear it very
no,
well.
that's tragic. Discord, you're too effective.
Yeah, maybe just lower your spell that lets us talk to each other long distances so I can hear him a little better. But no, that's cool. You're pretty good. There's this one Family Guy thing that you quote pretty often where you call people a phony, and this is coming from like season 1 or 2 of Family Guy, and like it just still is in your
Oh gosh.
vernacular. And when you do that, when you're like quoting that episode, it sounds a lot like the voice actor, who I'm pretty sure is probably Seth Green. Um, I'm not gonna ask you to do it right now because you're not prepared, but like Eric can be like, "You're a phony. You're like a big phony," and it sounds just like the guy.
You recall things I have not done. You're like, yeah, you do this all the time. I'm like, I do not remember the last time I've done this.
You've done it at least 3 times that I have been present for.
From the time we've known each other. That's a
Yeah,
long
from
time.
yeah, it's you've still done it 3 times.
Um, I also have more. I have a weird memory system where anything important, don't remember that. Do you
Hmm.
want to know the song that is sang at the end of the season 4 Futurama finale? Got it. I got that on lock.
The song at
I
the end
have
of the
not seen that episode
the
in
season
a long
4
time.
Futurama finale is Parasite's Lost. It's when Fry learns to play the holophoner.
Yeah, the Devil's Idle Hands.
Oh, you meant the song. Okay, yeah, the song that they all sing in the
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
stage. Yeah,
yeah. Look, what do you want? I want my hands back. Ah, never. And then it goes on. I think it might get us demonetized. I'm not gonna sing it.
I don't think we're gonna get copyright claim from you singing it, but yes, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, Eric, sing the entire 3 minute final act of the Futurama season 4 finale. I do think it's funny that like both of us knew like, of course, yeah, the season 4 finale of Futurama is that exact episode.
Yeah,
That's just like more useless knowledge.
yeah.
I think it would be fun. Um, we could get some.
To do a karaoke night.
We could do a karaoke night. I was thinking more of like trivia cards where it could be like a
Oh,
segment in the
sure.
episode where we just ask each other trivia because me and my friends from work do trivia related things very often. Like we have multiple. I'm gonna call it. It's a category of game that like is based on Cards Against Humanity, where you just buy a box with a bunch of cards on it. And there's so many of those that just have trivia questions, right? Like it's not like Trivial Pursuit where there's a game attached. It's literally just trivia questions. And we'll go through a box and then we'll just buy another one. And so we play trivia games a lot. And my trivial trivia knowledge is just so random. Like I'm not gonna say I'm good at trivia, but the stuff I know is weird. And so there will be questions, and everyone is like, "There is no way that anybody knows this," and I just like pull it out of nowhere.
Mm.
I have two trivia questions that from my 5 years of playing trivia with these people, where it's just like I still think about it to this day. One of the
Well, now you gotta
questions
share it.
was I am gonna share it. So this is not something I knew. This is something I just like totally guessed. The question was, what is the name of the cat from the play Cats who shares their name with a book of the Bible? I've never
Oh,
seen Cats. I know nothing about cats. I can't even
me
name every
neither.
book of the Bible. So like I couldn't even fathom a guess. There's lots of names in the Bible. There's Matthew, there's Mark, there's Luke, there's John, there's Esther, there's Ruth. There's lots of names, and for it to be like, oh duh, there's a cat named Matthew, right? Like that's just trivia that I don't know because I know nothing about cats.
Sure.
The only thing I know about cats is that their names are really weird.
Mm.
And so and again, this was more like it was a timed trivia thing, right? Like they ask a question, I answer it. If I get it right, they go on to the next card. So my
Yeah.
friend asks the question, what cat shares a name with a book of the Bible? And I throw my hands up in the air. I'm like, I don't know, Deuteronomy. And then she's like, yes. And then
Pause.
she pulls the next card to ask the next question. And I'm like, wait, what? What are you talking about? Because again, I was expecting it to be like Esther or something. But no,
Nah.
apparently there's a cat in Cats named Deuteronomy. And so that's always going to be my go-to, like, God shined down upon me and gave me divine inspiration to get that trivia question right. The other story was we're playing a game where you roll a die and you move across a board, and you get like a category of question, right? It's like, hey, I'm going to ask you an art question, or I'm going to ask you a question about Shakespeare. I'm going to ask you this, and when you hear the topic, so like one of the cards is Star Wars, right? So you hear the topic of the question. They're like, okay, I'm going to give you a Star Wars question. The card has 10 questions on it, with 1 being the easiest and 10 being the hardest. And so I say, Star Wars. I'll take the 7 question. And if I get it right, I move 7 spaces. If I get it wrong, I move no spaces. So you're wagering how well you know the topic. So for
Mm.
Star Wars, I'm like, give me the 10. and then the person asking me the question, like, can't even pronounce the names because the question is, what is the name of Jabba the Hutt's pet Kowakian monkey lizard? And, like, obviously it's Salacious B. Crumb, but the person asking the question's like, I don't know what half these words are. So we're playing that game, and the person after me is going to win on their turn, right? Like, they have one space left, no matter what, they're going to win.
Mm.
I can only have a chance of winning if I move at least 8 spaces. So the topic that comes up is the Smithsonian Museum.
Okay.
And I'm like, well, obviously if I pick a 3 or a 4, I have a bigger chance of getting it right. But if I get anything less than an 8, I lose anyway. So I guess I will pick an 8. And so my friend asking the question, looks at the question and laughs because, like, it's funny, and, like, obviously I'm not going to get it. And she's like, okay, Devin, your level 8 question for the Smithsonian is, what was dug up in a landfill in the early 2010s that was later transported to the Smithsonian Museum?
Lols.
And, like, people laughed because they're like, what nonsense? What thing that nobody would ever know? What a difficult question. And I, like, crack my fingers, and I'm like, I watched that live stream as it was happening. That would be copies of E.T. for the Atari 2600. And the look of astonishment and partial anger on her face as I knew the answer to this question will always stay with me.
That's gold. That's amazing right there.
Yeah.
Ah.
So we could maybe think about getting maybe some trivia cards and, like, asking each other questions and maybe get some funny moments like those out of them.
I mean, maybe that'll be like its own special episode.
It could be like a segment. Like, if one week we don't have any questions, like mailbag, we could be like, let's do a trivia thing. Besides, looking forward to future episodes, we're now going to move on to the next question, which is for me, which might make this the last episode ever, depending on how angry people get about it.
It'll be fine. People love us.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine. So the question is, Devin, I'm a big fan of Harry Potter as well, but the author is currently held under severe scrutiny due to her behavior online. How do you separate the art from the artist? And I have a very long answer to this question. Personally, I both do and don't believe that you can separate the art from the artist. Like, when I say I don't believe you can, I'm more talking about the message of a piece of work. I genuinely hate the philosophy of the death of the author theory. Basically, back in the day, people used to argue about what a work means by asking what the author meant by it, and then they'd use those arguments, and then they'd go around in circles. And eventually someone was like, the author is dead. We can't ask Shakespeare what this means, so why are we going to spend hundreds of years of thought and debate trying to figure out what he meant when ultimately we're just discussing what it means to us? Why can't we just talk about what it means to us? And I hate that mindset. I have no issue with people who read into a work and they get something out of it that's not intended because, like, it's real to them, right? Like, if you read a piece of writing and you get out of it something really deep and insightful that changes you as a person, and it's obviously not what the author meant, I have nothing against that, and I think that, you shouldn't be like, well, I guess I'm not going to change as a person because it's not what was meant, right? Like, obviously those kind of personal feelings are extremely valid. But my issue with people reading into a work to get something out of it that's not intended, but is real to them, is that I think that's not helpful in an academic sense. I think the only way to academically talk about something in a fruitful way is to talk about the authorial intention. And again, I really hate how people use death of the author to kind of push their own viewpoints, because I think that, they're missing the original point of death of the author to begin with, right? It's like, we can't know this, so we shouldn't waste time talking about it. Whereas, like, well, we could technically tweet out this person, ask them what it means, but let's not do that because I want to put out my own agenda. So I personally believe that all art has value, and part of that value is a glimpse into the soul or the heart, for lack of a better word, of other people, right? Like, nobody is a mind reader. Nobody knows other people's life experiences. There are billions of people in the world, and you are unique. You are one single person. And I think that when we consume other people's art, we are getting the best glimpse into that person's soul or their heart. in a much better sense than if they sat down in front of us and told us their opinions and their philosophies and their life story. I think when someone creates art, they're putting their soul on the page, and then when we consume that art, we are consuming their soul. Pun not intended, because we're talking about Harry Potter. I think that, we're consuming the other person's heart through the lens and the biases of our own experience, but that's still better than just trying to like explain your thoughts and your meanings to someone verbally, right? Like, if me and Eric are talking, and he says that icing isn't the best part of a cake, his opinion is formed from multiple layers of experiences that are individual only to him, right? Like, his taste buds are not my taste buds. The icing he ate is not chemically the same as the icing that I ate, because we're eating different cupcakes. He also might have a different definition of something tasting good. We talked on a previous episode about how he enjoys this like pork cheek that he was eating. And like, I hate the taste
So
of meat,
good.
right? Like, I never liked it before I was a vegetarian, and if I tasted that now, I'd probably vomit. So now, not only is he talking about tasting something that's literally different because we have different taste buds, but we consider good and bad is also different, right? Like, I love spicy food, and other people don't. So even if we take out the taste bud difference, we're tasting the same thing, I still enjoy the pain and they don't. So Eric might say something like the icing and the cupcake isn't the best part, but what he means is it is not as good as understood by him. Nobody else technically knows what he means by good. Nobody else has his taste buds. So arguably nobody else has ever eaten the same icing that he has. Right? It's like the whole like, oh, how do you know that my red and your red are the same? Maybe what I call red is what you call green. How could we ever know? Right? Like, there's a layer of experience that is based on human perception that is unique to each person. So when I hear him say that icing is not the best part of the cupcake, I'm hearing two different concepts. I'm hearing icing, and I'm hearing good. And to me, icing equates to the icing I've eaten, which is unique to me because we have different taste buds, and I'm thinking of my concept of good tasting food, which is unique to me based on my experiences. So Eric is trying to beam this thought from his brain to my brain, and it has to go through two different layers, two different prisms to get from him to me. From his brain to my brain, the signal, the message gets disrupted at least twice, from his bias saying the words and from my bias hearing the words. But if we're talking about art made by a third party, in my opinion, there's only one prism, because the art isn't being sent through a prism. It is a direct window into someone's heart or their mind or their soul. That is how I personally define art, right? Like, I think that the pure unobstructed view into someone's soul is the definition of art, right? So when I'm reading a poem, I think I'm looking directly into the other person's heart. I'm not passing through their prism. It is pure and true. It is not biased because it is art, and that's the definition of art to me. So the only prism it's passing through is my own bias and my own understanding, my own wall. So if me and Eric, as different people, read a poem, I believe that we will come to a more thorough, similar understanding than if we're having a conversation about something, because there's only one prism that's being passed through, right? And so that's why I think that art, and especially poetry and stuff, is extremely important in communicating very complicated themes. And I think that if you remove the intention of the author from the equation, then it ceases being art. I genuinely hate Death of the Author, because I think that if you view art that way, then it's basically the same as like going to ChatGPT and typing in "make me a poem." It's the same as AI art. There is no artist. There is no author. The piece might look good. A poem might sound good coming from AI. Then a piece of art they make might look good. It might be an inspiring, and a song might sound good, but it's not really art. I would argue that maybe the human who is inputting stuff into the generative AI is a form of art, but we're not going to touch that. Just that a contextless image with no creator is meaningless. So I think that you can't engage with art meaningfully without seeing the artist. J.K. Rowling has said, and this is such a good line, she has said that the death of her mother is present on every page of Harry Potter. And that's why I think it is so wrong and actually genuinely evil when people are of the opinion that once an artist releases something into the world, it is no longer theirs and now it belongs to everyone. I hate that. I hate that so much because no, you do not get to say what Harry Potter means. It is not yours. It is specifically hers. It is her soul dealing with the death of her mother, a person you have never met. It is a window into the specific pain she felt as a person dealing with her mother's death, and her terrible first marriage, and her crisis of faith, and her struggles with being famous, and all of those things that are a snapshot of her soul when the books were being written. Those stories are not yours, and they are not ours, and they're not our cultures, and they do not belong to the people. I hate that attitude, and again, I genuinely think it is evil. With that said, I think it is possible to separate the art from the artist in terms of how people will use that phrase. Like, I think when you, Mr. Jam, wrote that in your email that you're not saying that I think that we should, ignore J.K. Rowling's mother's death when we're reading Harry Potter. I think you mean, how do we separate the reputation of a piece of art from the reputation of the artist, right? And I think the answer to that, right, like, how can we enjoy H.P. Lovecraft when he was very racist? I think the answer to that is to be critical. When you read a book by a racist person, if you're worried that it will make you racist, then you're an idiot, right? Like, you know the meme where it's like, me at 10 years old, sitting down to watch a movie, ready to download the protagonist's personality into me for the next 3 months. That's something that, like, children and uncritical people do. Stories and fables can teach us morals or how to act, but if you take from a story uncritically, and it changes you for the worse, I believe that is on you. I very much hate the argument that there is such thing as damaging fiction. Obviously, there is damaging nonfiction, right? Like, if someone can write, try to change history to morph their beliefs and, like, preach hate and stuff, that's bad. But if you're interacting with fiction, then you should examine it critically and not just take it as, like, the equivalent of Aesop's fables, right? Like, you should be thinking about it. And thus, I have no issue with reading the work of terrible people, because when I open a book, I'm not like, time to download this author's morals into my head. I'm reading it through a very critical lens. I do not think that when you're watching Breaking Bad, there has to be a chyron on the bottom of the screen every few minutes that is like, these people are bad, do not do this. I don't think that you're watching American Psycho and there should be a disclaimer saying, just so you guys know, the main character of this is the bad guy. I think that it's fine if there are stories that only have bad characters or if the bad guys win at the end, right? There's a concept where there's a difference between something being descriptive and prescriptive. Prescriptive means that you're saying that something should be some way, right? Like you're prescribing a meaning onto it. Whereas descriptive means this is the way something is, and it makes no comment about whether that thing is good or bad. So if I prescriptively say, America is the land of the free, and some loser on Reddit goes, well, actually, the incarceration rate in America is the highest per capita in the world, that's not addressing my point, because my point is that America, at its heart, should be the land of the free, in its character, in its history, in its very essence. And when it's not acting like that, it is on us as Americans to bring it back, to make America free again. Right? Like that is prescriptive. I'm saying that's how it should be. Descriptive would be me saying something like, freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose, right? I don't know why both of my examples involved freedom, but here we are. So that is not me saying that is how it should be. That is me saying that I believe that's how it is. That you can only truly be free if you aren't worried about the consequences of your actions, and the only way to not be worried about consequences is to not fear them. So I'm not saying it is a good thing or a bad thing, I'm just saying that is how it works. So if you're reading a work that is being descriptive, like the way that house elves are described in Harry Potter, right? Like they are a subservient race that enjoys being subservient. Ron literally says in the book, they like being enslaved. That is not the moral of the story. That is being descriptive. That is J.K. Rowling pointing out that there are some people in society who are subservient and who like it, or who only know that way, and they think that they like it, right? Like, if you're a diehard communist, then you should agree with this statement. You should be like, why hasn't the revolution happened? It's clearly because the proletariat like being enslaved by the bourgeoisie, so we should break them free of this notion. So J.K. Rowling isn't saying that it's good that there are slaves who have this, internal mindset that they enjoy their lot in life. She's saying that it is a fact of culture of some people that they are by nature subservient. And then through the character of Hermione and Dobby, we see the subservient people break past that mindset, and by the end of the story, to some degree, the house elves are freed, and like they're there in the Battle of Hogwarts, right? And like they're able to break out of this mindset. So when Ron says they like being enslaved, he's being descriptive. When the narrative of the story shows them overcoming this mindset, I wouldn't say it's being prescriptive, but it is showing that this is not a good thing, right? The author isn't saying it is good that this is a thing that exists. It's saying that this is a thing that exists. And so I think it's very intellectually dishonest for people to point to the house elves in Harry Potter and say, hey, it's kind of messed up that J.K. Rowling invented this fantasy race of people who enjoy being enslaved, because that's not the point of the story. And again, I think that's very intellectually dishonest. So when it comes to the things that I am sure this comment is alluding to, which is her more recent statements on trans rights and etc., firstly, Gibby says trans rights. You can quote me on that. I don't think that J.K. Rowling having this problematic opinion should matter to you or to anybody. I think that when a good person sees a social issue, they should hopefully want to solve that issue, right? They are pro-equality. They want to use their position to hoist up those behind them to their level. And I'm going to speculate here, but from what I've read of J.K. Rowling, what she said, she's looking at these two groups of people who have been treated poorly by society and who have been oppressed. She's seeing women as one group, cis women, and she's seeing trans women as a group. And those two groups, at this moment in time, are in conflict. If you side with one, it is at the detriment of the other. If you let trans women into women's prisons, or into women's shelters, or on a women's sports team, it is to the detriment of the cis women. And if you don't, it is to the detriment of the trans women. And I think that J.K. Rowling came to her conclusion about wanting to hoist up the cis women to the detriment of the trans women, because to her, trans women ultimately are biological men, and men are the class that oppress women. I think that she would say that cis women do not oppress trans women as a group, but through her feminist lens, men as a group do oppress women as a group. And so to allow this circumstance where biological men are winning in this struggle against cis females, she would see that as a bad thing. She's siding with the biological women over their oppressors. That is her logic. And I do not like how people don't give each other the benefit of the doubt in general and try to see things from their perspective, right? Like, I am a cis man, I have no sisters, I have no daughters, I've never thought or really cared about, I have no stake in expanding trans rights other than I think that it's the right thing to do and it's progressive. I have no opinion on how it intersects with the rights or the privileges of cis women, right? So for me to disagree with J.K. Rowling when I don't have the experience is very easy for me. Intellectually, I think that I can just do that without having to examine either side. Whereas I can see, when I try to take on her perspective, why she has a hard time coming to what I believe is the, correct opinion on this matter. In my heart, I disagree, because I see cis women who are inviting to trans women, and I see this group of, trans people as a smaller minority, and they are such a newly accepted phenomenon, and they have been treated worse than women, and they are more oppressed than women. So my personal calculation of their privilege would place them as being more oppressed. And so my logic is that we should help them more, right? Like that's my logic. And so I disagree with J.K. Rowling's conclusion. But I think that J.K. Rowling very clearly has a good heart. She believes in justice and equality, and she has the same values that I have. I believe it is unarguable that she has a good heart. I just think that her mind is currently in the wrong state, at least in my opinion. Obviously, I could also be wrong. I'm only limited by my experiences the same way that she's limited by hers. Right? Like, Eric, I believe that you are more militantly pro-LGBT than me. But I've known you for decades, and 15 years ago, you weren't fighting for trans rights the way that you are now, because it wasn't part of the cultural conversation, right? Like, there's a time when you learned about this issue, and it became important to you, and you took a side. And we were not there when J.K. Rowling learned about this topic, and how it was presented to her, and then how it developed, and how she used her logic to arrive at her conclusion. And so I think to judge her for how she arrived at her conclusion is insane. I think she's ignorant, I think she is wrong, but I think that she clearly has a good heart, and I have no patience for people who dislike her now because of her tweets. People who are re-examining Harry Potter to figure out why this woman who they once thought was a champion of the downtrodden is now, transphobic and evil. I think the message of Harry Potter, yeah, and there's even a quote. I think Dobby calls Harry like the champion of the downtrodden at one point. But the message of Harry Potter, if you read it and if you take it into yourself, will improve your heart. It will improve your character because it comes directly from J.K. Rowling. It is an unobstructed view into her heart, and I think that she has a good heart. But that does not mean that her mind is always in accordance with what history will probably deem is the right side of history, the morally correct attitude to have right now. Like when Eric says that he doesn't like icing, he's wrong, right? Like he is on the wrong side of history when he says icing is wrong. But and history will shun him for having this opinion. Future people will not understand why he doesn't like icing. But that does not mean that he is not intending to make my life better when he recommends the correct ratio of icing to cupcake. He's not evil, he's just wrong. And unfortunately, I think there's a lot of people who hate J.K. Rowling, who they're right? They're on the right side, but they are evil. They have dark hearts. They hate, and they're using their position, right? Like I'm imagining like Karens who try to appear, they want to take up the progressive cause because they want to look like good people, right? Like they're doing the right thing for the wrong reason. And that kind of conflict between those two groups makes it very hard to say who's right and who's wrong. If you're doing the right thing for the wrong reason or you're doing the wrong thing for the right reason, which one is more moral? And currently, I believe that J.K. Rowling is doing the wrong thing for the right reason. Long story short, I think you can read Harry Potter and you can love it and you can take in its morals without worrying about becoming transphobic, because the moral and the glimpse into the heart of the author is wonderful. And the story and the morals of Harry Potter are beautiful. And her opinions and takes and logic and how she reaches her conclusions don't matter, because Harry Potter is not a glimpse into her mind, it is a glimpse into her heart. And that is my answer. Eric, what are your thoughts?
So, as much as I give flack for you pulling back the curtain, I'm gonna pull back the curtain. We started this episode, you came to me and said, listen, don't say anything. I'm gonna go on a rant at some point. And I said, okay. And now there's like 1,000 different points, and I don't even remember the first starting one. Um,
So I
okay.
guess my question to you is: do you have an opinion on Death of the Author? Do you have an opinion on people who are like, oh, we can't allow this book to be published because the ideas are dangerous? Who look at the potential readers and are like, they might uncritically look at this and change their opinions, which I think that's silly. And then do you have an opinion on the definition of art? Right, like is art a look into someone's heart or their mind or both or neither? So I guess I'm
Okay.
more asking your opinion on Death of the Author than I am asking your opinion on J.K. Rowling's tweets.
Yes, yes, yes. I don't really even engage with that. I don't, eh, eh. Um, Death of the Author. I think that it is probably fine. How, I I haven't spent a long time thinking on such topics. So right in the case of like Lovecraft, Shakespeare, etc., right? Like authors who are dead. Like yes, we're they're dead. We can only intuit so much from it, and whatever you intuit, it was whatever you get from it. Um, I similarly like as long as you are critical about your reading, like you'll probably be fine. Like I have read some of Lovecraft's works. I got a one of his like book collection, uh the first volume in it, or what, I don't know what exactly it is, but like an anthology of his works for the holidays one year, because I was like, I want to get more into horror, and Lovecraft is kind of spearheaded a type of genre of horror, and like I can definitely see some of his thoughts into it, but I'm just like, oh, okay, like, yes, this is making sense with the things I've heard about him, and I can see it in his works, and okay, that imagery, though, is still creepy. I think the only time it's a relevant concern is for like literal children, right? Like you said, of when
Yeah.
they watch something and it's like, I'm gonna be like that for the next 3 months, and it's like, ooh, child, maybe don't. Which also, your child, I would say, probably shouldn't be reading stuff like that. Or at the very least, work with them so that you know intimately how their emotional intelligence is, as well as their like academic intelligence, so that they can understand, all the nuances. The in So there's that. Um,
I read this great. I'm not gonna say it's a quote, but it was a post. I don't even remember where I read it. But someone was like, the people who are most upset by J.K. Rowling acting this way are the people who read Harry Potter and then never moved on past YA fiction, and so
mm,
they read things as if everything is Aesop's fables, and because they've never directly interacted with more adult literature, they don't understand the way that you're supposed to critically view art. And the fact is that while Harry Potter is definitely, um, for young readers, it is such a masterwork of art that it does take this more critical lens to look into it and to get its themes and its meanings. And so the fact that these people will read it or will look back on it as adults and be like, yo, it's messed up that the house elves are slaves, it's because they're not engaging with it the way that you should engage with true literature, because they never graduated past young adult literature, right? Like a lot of people in our generation read because of Harry Potter, but then they never wanted to read anything besides Harry Potter. So I think that part of the issue is that there are people who don't engage with literature correctly and thus are prone to, um, I guess, prone to like reading the wrong thing into it, right? Like I think that some of the most damaging people in history, right? So like it is very dangerous to read the Bible and to come away with wrong interpretations. And some of the most evil and damaging people in history have been people who read the Bible and came away with the wrong interpretations. And in my opinion, that is not a problem with the Bible, that is a problem with the human beings who are reading it. And so, similarly, if you look at any great piece of literature, including in this case Harry Potter, which I think is a great piece of literature, it's on the reader to understand the things within it before downloading it into their personality, right? And because Harry Potter is arguably aimed at children, this happens less often than I believe it should, right? It's not looked at for the. I actually took a course in college about the like delving into Harry Potter or series literature, but I think that because people don't examine it that critically, it may end up with people getting wrong interpretations from it.
mm. Well, and when you were saying that, it made me think of a thing which perhaps correlates. For the most part, our technological level is a recent thing. And when people read Lovecraft, I mean, they had whatever thoughts they had about him, right? Like people from Lovecraft's when he was alive,
Yeah,
um, read his work and they were like, "Nah, whatever. I don't think he was too much of a hot shot." Um, but then and then that was it, right? And like you never met Lovecraft or anything. And with the amount of war technology that we have, like not that it like excuses it, right? Just another like avenue of thought of like not only could you have grown up with Harry Potter and read it throughout the entire course of it, the original series, by the time you finished reading it, you could then go online and see what the author was saying about her everyday life, about the books, about like literally anything. The amount of like access individual humans have to other individual humans without ever seeing them is crazy. So then you put that onto this scale, right? So like you grew up with Harry Potter and read it and you like downloaded it into yourself because oh my gosh, it's an amazing piece of work. I love it so much. And then you learn that the person who wrote it has whatever views. And this could apply to anything, right? Even outside of Harry Potter and Rowling. This is just the example we're using. But to learn that the person that made this work that you have like allowed yourself to be influenced because you believe the morals are correct and whatever, and then to see it like inversely reflected into the author of like, hey, Rowling said to like love everyone, and I haven't read Harry Potter, whatever the themes are. Like pain is suffering is bad, and then you see whatever things saying of essentially harming another group, and you go, well, hey, wait a minute, that's not the person in my mind who wrote this book. Like the level of uh, creator and consumer is so much closer and can get mingled so much easier. Right, that's why there's the saying like, "Don't meet your heroes,"
Yeah.
and like, so I think that's an interesting point as well. Like for my own little tidbit of this, right? I absolutely love Kingdom Hearts. Tetsuya Nomura made them, and then for Kingdom Hearts 3, he let's not get too into it. He was working on a lot of different video game projects. The company kind of said you're doing too many projects and it's stopping you from putting out any games. And so now we aren't making money, so you have to focus on one thing at a time and whatever other background shenanigans were happening. And so, at least at the time, I've kind of distanced myself from Kingdom Hearts since Kingdom Hearts 3 came out. And, a lot of the things you could read into it of like, wow, the character Riku looks a lot more like the character Noxus from Final Fantasy 15, which is the game Nomura was working on, which he got taken off of, and blah, blah, blah. And like, this person that has made a thing that I've enjoyed is now making decisions that seem lame to me because he's petty and salty and I didn't think that person was like that, and but now I guess maybe he is, who knows. And like you get like weird, and as before this level of technology I would have been like, wow, Riku has a new design, I don't love it, but whatever. But now that we just know so much all of the time and you can know everything in theory, you know,
So you're
uh,
saying that like he wanted to work on Final Fantasy 15, but the company made him work on Kingdom Hearts, and so he turned the character of Riku, who has 20 years of history, into acting more like the protagonist of the game he actually wanted to work on. And in the past, if you had absolutely no insight into his thought process, you might look at it and be like, "Oh, Riku is slightly different now. I wonder why that is. What's the thematic purpose of this?" And because we have
yeah.
access into Nomura's thought process, we know that there is no deeper meaning. It's him saying "screw you" to the company, and because you are a fan and you're invested in Riku's character development, you find this a betrayal. And so to you, having access to the inner thoughts of the author has decreased your enjoyment of the piece of art.
What a succinct way to put it.
You've been ranting about this for like 5 years, Eric. I know your opinion.
Thank you. Thank you. And so I think, and like, I don't know, not that, there's also a thing which I was on Tumblr where I saw this, go Tumblr. And it brought up an interesting point, right? Of like, people, and I'm not excusing what anyone has said per se, people are adults and they need to be held up to their own actions. But there is not much of a space for people to learn, like to say the wrong things and to then be, you know, politely corrected, or to be like, hey, you shouldn't say this thing because that's not a great thing to say, and here's why, right? There's
Yes, and
not a lot of
Tumblr is definitely not
opportunities.
that space, Eric.
Listen, I'm not saying Tumblr is that space.
In fact, I believe
However,
it is possibly the problem, but continue.
but right, of like, because there's so much online presence, like everyone can be critical of everyone without the initial person ever like receiving good faith learning or trying to be bettered by another. Uh, like when, I mean, look at like kids now and kids back then and kids at any point, right? You like, if you're not corrected in a receptive way to the child, they will just continue on going on with whatever belief system they have because they didn't learn or know any better. It translates further and further into adulthood.
I think there's this problem with because the internet is forever, right? Like you dig up someone's tweets from when they were 16 and you apply that to both who they are now as a person and also how society standards have changed. And I think that we should not do that, right? Like in the go-to example, I think for us is like the R word. When we were younger, it wasn't a big deal, and I would never have called it the R word. I would have just said the word because it literally was not a bad word back then. Nobody thought it was a bad word, or very few people did on the fringes, and nobody would think twice about just using it. But now it has definitely been deemed by society as something that is no longer acceptable. And so if you look back at even my videos on YouTube, my older videos where I would just say the word, that's not to treat me now as, oh my god, he's like someone who says the word right now because I said it in the past before I knew that it was bad and before, back when it was more acceptable, I think is wrong. And we need to accept that people can like grow and change their opinions, and that the fact that the internet is forever is a new phenomenon.
Yeah. Um, Especially with just like it also it's also just kind of weird, like again, right? People should be held up to their actions and accept whatever consequences. But when you dig up something that's 10 years old and you're like, I'm going to hold you accountable to this, and it's like, well, 10 years have also passed. Like, the what you see online is only so much of what a person is or are, and like, uh the internet's crazy, man. The internet's crazy. um I kind of have derailed it a little bit. What is art? I'd say art is like a work of the heart and mind, I guess. I do think, I mean, right, I would say it's both. I'd say it leans to heart because, right, if you actually successfully make your art, the likelihood that it was made with that original kernel of good goodness from your heart is more there than not, hopefully.
I I
Unless
think
you're
that
like into Assassin's Creeds and you're on the 20th game and it's, you're a company doing company things.
I think that art that comes from the mind and not the heart is like is what we would call propaganda, right? Like if it's coming from your mind and not your heart, it's not art, it's propaganda. And they can look similar and they can be hard to distinguish, but I think that's the difference.
I think it would be both because if you're writing about whatever thing, then I think there is a certain amount of due diligence you then have to do of like researching that thing, knowing what you're talking about. I mean, if you make up your own fantasy world and it's all your own rules, I guess you could say that's one thing, but it's presumably inspired by something. You're not just, I guess you could have received divine intervention and just had the most unique idea to ever unique. Um, right, but like to, you know, I would say if you're gonna make a piece of art and it's budded from your heart, then you, in whatever process, the editing or the drafting or before or afterward, right? You then go, okay, based on the time that I am living in, how much of the information that I have available is accurate and good, and like what, like double checking your own work, right? You're double checking what your heart has put down, of like, am I actually saying what I want to say? Am I conveying things properly? Etc. You know?
Yeah.
And that's where I would say the mind comes in.
I do want, obviously, there's an element of mind to, as you were just saying, like editing and whatever. I do want to say there is an art to propaganda, but I do not think that propaganda is art, and I sort of fall into the same category with AI art, right? Like there is an art to making AI art. Like there are people who are going to be more skilled in it than others, but I do not think that the end result is art unless you have the more human touches, right? Um, I also want to pay lip service to the fact that like there are definitely people out there whose dislike of J.K. Rowling comes more from the financial aspect, where they're like, I do not want to
Sure.
financially support somebody who is going to spread hatred, right? So I'm not going to buy something with a Harry Potter logo because I don't want to financially support her. And I think that's a very different argument and a very different topic that people can have diverse opinions on. And I would just say that it's when there's some sort of boycott going on, I think it's wrong to like shame people who are not participating in it, right? Like if someone came up to me and was like, "You're not a trans ally because you buy Harry Potter Legos." That's not going to change my heart and my mind. That's going to make you annoy me, right? I'm just going to be like, "You're dumb." Um, so I think that everyone should just be treated with respect at all times.
Into that regard, all right, of the financial aspects, yeah, yeah, and this is kind of, I didn't quite want to go into it. I didn't know what we were doing with it. But like, I understand that at least, right? I understand both sides of that, right? Like, I don't want to give my money to J.K. Rowling because, oh no, she's gonna donate to whatever causes in there that's gonna make trans lives harder and so forth and so on. Versus, well, I just want to consume the product because it was my childhood favorite thing growing up, and shrug. Um, like it's we're being asked to care about a lot of different topics and things, which is fine in theory, but an individual can only give so much to anything. And I don't, if you're just really, if you're focusing all of your attention on climate change and you're like, oh, it's such a long time, and then you just buy some Harry Potter thing and you're just not even thinking about it, and it's like, oh no. But at the same time, I don't know. Hey, you know what's great though? Secondhand stuff. That's how, I mean, I would get around that. I don't care about Harry Potter personally. Uh, but like if I wanted to buy the books for whatever reason, I would go to a flea market or whatever and like find it secondhand. And then that circumvents that issue for a person somewhat. And that's all I'm gonna say on the matter.
I think that very very complex topics like this require a lot of like we could probably have a 4 hour conversation only talking about this topic, and I hope that
Probably.
anyone out there who's like, I wish he had explained this better, or oh, I don't like how he said this, again, I hope you give us the benefit of the doubt, and that our ability to cover a complex topic like this in this podcast format is not necessarily indicative of our hearts, right? It's only indicative of the improvised speech I just gave that I didn't know what I was going to say sentence to sentence. And that we get
Yes.
your leeway in that. I do, just because this is already going to be our longest podcast episode ever. I do want to go to the next question because there's two left. Um,
Oh
I'm gonna
gosh.
I'm gonna do mine first, and it's a nice palate
Okay.
cleanser from that question. It's Devin, what house are you in Harry Potter? And the answer is Ravenclaw. Even as a kid, I very much liked Ravenclaw because they were sort of like they were the smart kids, And I'm not saying that I was the smart kid in school. I'm saying that because I was so into Harry Potter that I feel like if I was magically transported there, magically, huh? I would definitely be a Ravenclaw because like I already had all the spells memorized. Like I knew a history of magic more than I knew the history of the real world. So like I would definitely be a
Yes.
Ravenclaw as a kid. I thought because I know so much about the world of Harry Potter. Now as an adult, looking at Harry Potter the way I do, and looking at how the aspects of the houses are more about like the things you value, right? Like, do you value bravery? When I was a kid, I didn't know what bravery was. Like, I understood what people meant when they said it, but I didn't think of like, bravery and courage is doing things that are scary, even though you know they're scary, but doing it anyway because it's the right thing, right? Like, I've heard people be like, courage is the courage to walk and step in front of a bus because it's dangerous. And I like thought like, yeah, that's silly. But now looking at it, I'm like, okay, no, it's courage and bravery are the bravery to do the right thing even though it's hard. And cunning, which is a Slytherin thing, is like a certain kind of intelligence, whereas Ravenclaw intelligence is a different kind of intelligence, and Hufflepuff is just about being friendly and being loving. So with those values in mind now as an adult, I do still think I'd be a Ravenclaw, and that's because I have this inner philosophy that I believe that learning about the universe, learning about life and reality and philosophy makes you closer in a more metaphorical sense, right? Learning about the universe makes you closer to God, right? Because like, oh, if whatever version of God you believe in, whether it's a literal like Christian God or it's more just like the universe is God, right? Learning about how things work brings you closer to that level of divinity, however you want to define that. And so because that is such a core aspect of my personality, I feel like that fits in with Ravenclaw more than it fits in with the other houses. So as a kid I was a Ravenclaw because I liked Harry Potter. As an adult I'm a Ravenclaw because I have a degree in philosophy. And that's my answer.
That's beautiful.
So the
I do have an answer for this because I
mm-hmm,
did watch the movies.
mm-hmm.
As a kid, I was like Gryffindor naturally. Why? Because Gryffindor is the main house. Duh. As an adult, Hufflepuff all the way, baby.
I know a lot.
We're
Most people I know are Hufflepuffs.
it's good vibes, man, and that's what I'm about, you know. Just have a picnic in a park and just kind of relax and enjoy nature. What do I need to kill a troll for?
It's about love and inner peace and things like that. And so, I think all aspects of like the Hogwarts houses are things that everybody should value, right? Like obviously these are all good
Oh, sure,
things,
yeah.
but it's about like, what do you value most or what is a core
Yes.
aspect of your being, right? So I don't think there's a wrong answer. So
No.
the final question is this is for Eric.
I don't like
Eric,
how excited you are.
we've heard a lot about Devin's hobbies, but not very much of your own. What are some of your hobbies?
Why you want to know? No, I understand. I see this is like dinner date questions though, so like, you know, I live under a bridge. Um, I feel like I haven't made them like I haven't like hidden them, I guess, but I guess I've never explicitly said them. I read manga. Um, I do have a small collection of mythology books that I need to get to reading too. But I want to finish the manga first because then I'll clear that first because it's easier to read and then I can get to the myths. Um, I do listen to various podcasts, don't we all?
I have found that a lot of
I
people, even the people who are listening to us now, do not regularly listen to podcasts and they're only listening to it
Oh,
because it's
seriously?
us. Oh, yeah.
Oh. Oh, okay. So it's not that I can't be alone with my thoughts, but why would I be? So I'll listen to Koabana, True Japanese Scary Stories by Tara A. Devlin. I'll listen to Castle Super Beast, which is Pat and Wooly from Super Best Friends, etc. Um, Stuff like that. Some fictional podcasts, NADPod. Uh, because why not, you know? Uh Enjoy me some video games. I've kind of had a falling out with them because I can read and I can read more manga and watch more anime if I don't play video games because video games are so time intensive. But I have gotten back into playing Hades, and I am looking forward to when Hades 2 comes out. I go bouldering. Um, I'm trying to make exercise more of a thing. Now that spring is back, I can go back to playing soccer, so that's cool. And yeah, I'll also just kind of. I mean, it's not really a hobby, but when you do have six animals, it does take a lot of time. Um, especially when like you're, you know, it's a when you live with multiple people and then those people go off and then you have to take care of all of them by yourself. Yeah, I feel like that. Did I answer that? I feel like I answered that.
Yeah, you answered that. And like you've talked about, we've talked about long conversations about bouldering and trading card games and manga. I think that
Oh, I
a
am
lot
so
of,
sorry I did not bring up trading card games. I
yes,
couldn't. I play Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel is the one video game I can lose hours on because I love card games so much. Sorry, you were saying a sentence.
I was just saying that I think a lot of the people who are watching us right now, and hopefully this changes in the future if we build our own audience, but a lot of the people watching us right now came to us from my YouTube channel, and so they're just going to inherently know me better. And so while you have talked about your hobbies before, I think that, getting across more of those details about your life is something that we could like focus on, right? Like not just being like, I went bouldering. You can talk about what it is about bouldering that makes you interested in doing it, right? Like is it a shonen sense of wanting to better yourself? Is it wanting to conquer that last wall? Is it the people that you do it with? Is it like the good nice pain that you feel afterwards, right? Like really get into your psyche and how you feel. But in general, I think that we're over the 2 hour mark, and we should save that kind of discussion for another time.
Devin, you can't make promises for other videos, episodes.
I'm not making no
Could
promises.
you?
Maybe I'm a dirty liar.
You can't be a dirty liar. We have to clear your name. Well, well, well. This has been the episode of episodes. I hope when people see that this is 2 hours, they get excited instead of fearful. Feel free to write in if you got excited or were scared that this was 2 hours and what we would cover.
Yeah, remember, write in slapendipity at gmail.com or in the comments if you're watching this on YouTube.
I never said I didn't like icing. It's the ratio. That's the thing. Icing is still good and delicious. I just
Icing
want
is
that cleared up.
icing is good and delicious. Thank you guys for watching.
We'll see you next time. Go outside and touch grass unironically. It'll center you.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba.